When was the last time you truly played? I mean, not performed, but played. And what if the key to better leadership, creativity, and connection wasn't found in working harder, but in rediscovering your sense of play? Come on, gather your team. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to Transformation Station, where we explore the shifts that spark growth, courage, and authentic leadership. Listen, I'm Adrienne Benton, your host, and today we're diving into a leadership topic that just might surprise you. That's right, we're talking about the power of play. Now, listen, in a world that celebrates productivity and perfection for leaders, play can sometimes it can feel a little trivial or irresponsible, but today's guest, Susan Hensley, is going to remind us that play is where creativity is born, resilience is built, and real transformation begins. So listen, go ahead again and gather your team, get your notes so we can get together and grow, grow, grow. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. Her name is Susan. Susan Hensley is a transformational coach, speaker, and author dedicated to helping people navigate life's transitions with joy and creativity and resilience. With decades of experience as a corporate executive and leadership coach, Susan has a deep understanding of the challenges and opportunities that come with major life changes. Transformation Station, help me to welcome Susan. Welcome to Transformation Station podcast today.
Oh, Adrienne, thank you. I am so happy to be here and appreciate the intro.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I've been looking forward to this particular episode because, I mean, Susan, let's start here, right? So many adults, we tend to think that play is something that we leave behind in childhood, right? And it's interesting to think about play being essential for leaders and professionals. And I wonder sometimes, and I know we're going to talk about this in a little bit, Susan, but I've often wondered, why is it that we as adults lose our ability to be innovative and to connect deeply with others through play? I know that there are a lot of leaders that they always talk about creative teams, but many times as leaders, we don't often allow the environment to actually create that. So I want to start off by asking you this question. Why do so many, from your experience, why do so many high achieving adults lose their connection to joy and creativity? And Susan, what does it cost us?
Sure. It is a great question. And I have seen it and experienced it myself. As we become adults in the Western culture built on success and productivity, that is our space and time, and has been for really the last several decades, right? It's more with less. It's look for ways to optimize, right? And what happens is in that environment, you keep squeezing out the space that you need for play and creativity. And you're looking for shortcuts, hacks, repetition, building muscle memory, how you get better, faster, taking steps out of the process. And that is terrific to a point. And then when you have to make a major leap within your business or in your leadership style, doing the same thing better and faster, it can be very hard to step back and reinvent. And that's where the real change and innovation comes. You know, in the last 10 years, everything's innovation. We need to innovate faster. Very hard to innovate when you're trying to move faster and you're not creating space for, and I'm going to use the word play. A lot of times people talk about failing faster. In a business environment, very focused on productivity, failure, as much as many companies try and make failure safe, I'm using air quotes, there's nothing about that phrase that feels good to a human being.
Right. It's true. It's true.
So moving to a space of play. And when I say play, it can be curiosity. And being curious is what sparks creativity. And we'll get under those words. But what's really happening in our brains, and neuroscience has proved this out, is we are moving from the very overused left hemisphere of our brain in current Western culture, which is linear, discerning, what's next on the task, how do I get faster? I have loved living in that space. That space served me very well, and many others, for a number of years. But when I started to make time and to very intentionally move to that right side of my brain, the place of holistic thinking, intuition, and I got there through play, things really opened up.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of the foundation or genesis of it.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. As you were talking, I was thinking from a leadership perspective too, like what I've seen over the years, even in my own leadership for over 2 decades, is sometimes losing that sense of play because of the pressure to perform. And somewhere along the way, either somebody told me or I convinced myself that play did not belong where high performance should reside. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And, looking back now, I realized that there are costs to these. Sometimes the cost was burnout.
Well, absolutely burnout. And, when I took to play in art journaling, it was about burnout. But what's interesting is when we are young leaders, right? You and I both talked about being leaders for, say, 2+ decades. Yes. When you are a young leader, being overly playful, if you will, could be a detriment because you are trying to prove that you are serious and can get things done. The challenge, however, is we then double down on that, making ourselves, as we grow in authority, in experience, potentially making ourselves more remote, overly hierarchical, and to be quite honest, a little frightening as newer people come into an organization. So depending on the size of the organization, I worked in a large global organization, you can be very far removed, and that creates a real distance where when you incorporate some play, appropriate humor, vulnerability, it bonds larger teams to you, which then helps to go for a step change vision. And so I think, to your point, we come by that seriousness very naturally in the early stages of our career when we are moving from that young adulthood into wanting to be, seen as a leader. And it's worth examining because what served us really well in our first leadership positions, maybe as a supervisor of 2 people, does not serve you well decades later. And we have very different people in the workplace, very different expectations. And that was the other lesson I was learning the hard way before I started to incorporate some play and creativity and more holistic thinking, is the generations that I was recruiting and bringing into our workplace didn't have the same values about work that I had necessarily. And I needed to adapt to that. I wanted them to adapt to me, and many leaders do. Yes. And I think that is actually hurting productivity and it's hurting engagement. I think as leaders, as much as we don't want the onus to be on us, we do need to find ways to engage the different generations that are entering the workforce with very different expectations of what work should be.
Absolutely, 1000%. So here in Transformation Station, we always give our listeners and viewers an opportunity to pause and do some reflection. I think this is a really key place for us to start as listeners and viewers to do some reflection. And so one of the reflection principles that we want to ask ourselves leaders are, when did I start believing that my worth was tied only to my results? talking about play. We're talking about opening up that door of opportunity to really experience and enjoy life. Where, if anywhere, in the culture that we are building as leaders, are we executing our life and our leadership as though our worth, our value, the success of the team is tied to results? Another one that I thought about while you were talking was this fear of failure and judgment. Oh my goodness. They say fear stands for false evidence appearing real, right?
Right.
Fear is natural. It is natural. But when we allow ourselves to avoid risk because we fear making a mistake or losing credibility, that again takes away from us being able to allow play, from us being able to allow some light moments, from us being able to engage. And so I want to ask you this question, right? You say that play is not only for kids, that it's a mindset. So, Susan, what does play really mean in the context of adult life and leadership? I really want to hear the answer to this question.
Sure. So, what I have experienced with my clients and what play looks like, and there's a couple different levels. At its most basic level is to take a few minutes a day, 3 to 5. I'm not talking about a long period of time, and do something for the sheer sake and joy of doing it. I wrote a whole book on art journaling, which is not about making art. It's about playing, if you will, with crayons and collage. But this could be singing. It could privately. It could be dancing privately. It could be making a little rock structure, playing with Play-Doh. It's just a few minutes. And anyone who has children around, take some of their art supplies and just play. Just a few minutes and see how you feel. So at its most basic level, I'm talking 3 minutes to put yourself in a space where you have no expectations of mastery. This is so important. I teach a lot of workshops, and one of the first exercises I do is I give the adults, all adults, and there are 2 crayons. And for 3 minutes, they're just going to fill a small piece of paper. I don't care how they fill it. No one's going to look at it. They don't have to show it. They don't have to talk about 3 minutes. I put on some upbeat music. They fill it. Afterwards, we talk about it. What does it feel like? And I am consistently shocked, one, that people say it felt fun, silly, joyful. They couldn't believe how fast the time went by. Several of them say, this is the first thing I've done in years and years without real instructions, without a rule. What I've discovered with that is, as an adult, I've yet to meet one who, when handed 2 random crayons, actually has an expectation of mastery or perfection or being good. That's what I would love for your listeners and viewers to think about, to add something in where you don't have that self-talk and self-image of being good. Like maybe you actually think you're a very competent artist. Don't draw then. Do something where you don't have an expectation of good. That's play, because I'm using the word play, but what I'm really talking about is just sort of creative curiosity. Like, how does this feel? I don't need to become an artist. I don't need to become a potter, whatever it is, a singer. It's just sort of fun. And people's heart rate slows. I mean, there's this entire
it's true
volume of research about what happens in just a few minutes, the serotonin that's released. And it's because you're kicking over to that right side of the brain. You just feel a little more relaxed. It helps you to view things afterwards from just a slightly different perspective. You get out of the grind mindset and into a possibility mindset.
This is powerful. I mean, this is really powerful because I think it's so relevant. You know, I was telling a friend the other day, I have several colleagues who they work like super, super hard their whole career. And as soon as they retire, all of a sudden their bodies start having all kind of issues, right? Migraines and heart attacks and strokes. And, you know, I was saying to my friend that, you know, as I look at where I am in my leadership now, I want to be able to enjoy the moments And one part of it is enjoy, as far as the sheer enjoyment factor. The other part of it is, I think my mindset has changed as far as what success is.
Yeah.
And I kind of hear you saying that, as you're talking, it's a mindset, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And it's also giving that space for experimentation, not just execution, right?
Yeah.
Giving the I love that, giving the crayons, and people don't expect that they are going to color this perfect whatever they color. They don't expect it
Yeah.
to be perfect. It's an expression of them.
Right.
That's so
It's
powerful.
it is, and the privacy and ability, because it's been so long for so many of us since we have just
Yeah.
played, that it
Mhm.
does bring you back to typically that age, like 5 or 6, before we've gotten messages that maybe we aren't creative. Research shows that that tends to happen about 8 or 9 in
Mhm.
Western culture, that some of the messages through school that maybe you aren't, creative, go this way, go to engineering, go to writing, different paths, which is all well meaning.
Mhm.
And I was reflecting on your question about when was the last time, or when did you start to become rewarded for results? And many people, that becomes in childhood. I recognize I had that from childhood. I joke I'm a recovering perfectionist, that
Mhm.
early on I could win a contest for something academic. I could do this, and it
Yes.
well-meaning, and it helped me to succeed, but it was eliminating play and joy and teaching me that when I perform well, when I get a result,
Yes.
that's what gets the attention
Yes.
versus doing something for the joy. So I believe we come by this all very naturally, and it's breaking out of those patterns at
Mhm.
different stages of our life to sort of rediscover and look at things a new way. We can get stuck in ruts.
I love that. So, to leaders, we want to ask you right now, does your leadership create space for experimentation or just execution? And one relevant application that I'm thinking of as you're talking is starting meetings off with a creative icebreaker. Start a meeting off with a brainstorming exercise that encourages free speech, encourages exploration. Yeah, and giving the team an opportunity. Sometimes we have people on our team that feel as though they don't have a voice.
Yeah.
When we allow and cause these non-judgmental occurrences or moments, it allows everyone to feel like they have something that they can contribute, which I absolutely love. Oh my gosh. Oh, this conversation is going so well. Listen, what are some of the common misconceptions about creativity that you address in your book?
Sure. The first one is that many people say, I'm not creative. That
Mhm.
somewhere, right, they got that message in childhood that we got put into buckets. And there's a creative bucket, and we all can recognize the creatives, but
Mhm.
the rest of us aren't. So the very first thing is recognizing that every human alive has a creative impulse and can create.
Yeah.
It's releasing yourself from that expectation. And it's why I like to enter through a playful, curious state, because we can
Mm.
all remember a point, usually, like I said, 4, 5, 6, where we just played with something. Maybe it
Yes.
was models, maybe it was making shapes. Everyone has a different memory, but to try to tap into that space is what really opens it up, because you may not finish a 3-minute exercise and think, oh, I'm a creative genius. But what you do realize is that you love to create.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, what gets pushed back is that impulse, that desire, if you will, to create, because the rest of the time we've been working toward mastery and building skills and improving
Mm-hmm.
versus just creating. And when you feel that, ooh, that was sort of fun, I really
Mm-hmm.
work with clients and teams to say, what'd you notice in your body? And people say, more open,
Mm-hmm.
different perspective, right? And that's what builds that sort of curiosity about, like, well, what if? Even if you're just saying, what if I added a sticker to this? It's like, and you realize nothing, when you're playing, nothing really happens. It's what I call, it's very safe risk taking. So it gets people who are wanting to be perfect at everything and very afraid of failure, to get comfortable in the safest possible way. No one's looking at it. You're just being curious. But for a lot of people, that can be a stretch, particularly in high pressure, high performance environments. Some people work in extremely serious environments, meaning healthcare, where their jobs do feel like life and death. And so saying introduce play at that moment isn't responsible or where you need to be. So you're introducing play and creativity in moments and spaces that are in essence safe, which allows you to pay attention to how you feel and start to broaden your perspective.
Love that 1000%. Again, as we are listening, as we are watching Transformation Station, I want to invite you right now, community, let's take some assessments. Like what is resonating with you right now in this conversation that we're having? And how can you leverage that as you move forward? For me, one of the misconceptions that I realized that I've had is this one: we don't have time for creativity. We just need to focus on results. Oh my goodness. I tell you, as you go through your journey in leadership, it's amazing the different the different places we find our mind, right? But often, sometimes, many high-driven, high-powered, we're about the metrics and meeting the mission. Many times, we perceive that we don't have time for creativity. We need results. But I like, I love what you were saying as far as, when we look at the impact that play has, man, it is so beneficial.
It is.
Creativity is the pathway to better results.
Yeah.
It would be amazing if we could change our mindset to realize that. You were going to say something, sorry.
No, I love what you said, because yes, that's a trap I've fallen into, and my clients and teams as well. And what I've really tried to do, both in the book and my TEDx talk, is show that it's a few minutes. I bet everyone picks up their phone at some point and ends up down a rabbit hole for 3 minutes. Even if you're the most disciplined person, somewhere in there's some scrolling that's probably 3 minutes worth of scrolling, if not much, much more.
Yeah.
So what my sort of ask, if this intrigues a listener, is to replace maybe one of those times where a person's checking social media or the news. I heard a great quote today that you can get all the news you need in 5 minutes. The rest is just people talking about the news.
Right.
So I have been pondering that all morning since I heard it. So to start with the smallest possible bite, it's not taking a 3-hour pottery class. You may not have time for that, or a dancing class. Privately, 3 minutes, 5 minutes of doodling or play. Because when we start that small and we pay attention to how it feels afterwards, and if it expands our thinking, it's really helpful. Sometimes when we're feeling the most rushed and the most, if you will, on that treadmill of I have to get this done, I have to get this done, our thinking is narrowing and narrowing and narrowing, and we are missing opportunity. We're not looking up and seeing what's around us. And I think that's how we actually get in the ruts. And it doesn't take any more time to take that deep breath, if you will, shake out your body, even when you're feeling particularly rushed or tense. It can be, 30 seconds or a minute, and yet it expands perspective instantly.
Tell us a little bit more about that. It expands perspective instantly. How so?
So I don't know how common, well, I think this is common for anyone. You're trying to do something, you're trying to do it on a timetable, and you've gotten yourself set. I'm going to accomplish this in the next hour. And you're working with the team, and the results you want to get to. The team's sort of going everywhere. But because the anxiety is building about getting to the result against that clock that is ticking, you're getting more and more narrow and focused.
Okay.
So you're not hearing what ifs that a team member may be putting out. You're not taking a moment to do any research. You're not hearing about maybe risk mitigation. I'm just talking about a team meeting because the focus is getting to the result. So you've put on blinders.
Mercy.
What that brief moment when you find yourself doing that, and I'm not talking about necessarily doodling, if you can catch yourself and you can take a deep breath, and I actually like when I take a deep breath to roll my shoulders back. You see me doing it and sort of shake. It just reminds you, I mean, that was what, 5 seconds I took. It allows you to just hear and pause. There's so much choice in that pause because the situation I described is just you reacting. Whereas when you get that pause, there's that brief moment for reflection to come in. So I've described something that I've worked with so many teams that are feeling, and people start to act like they're out of breath. They're not running. They're sitting around a conference table like, right? And that's where I do find you can doodle. You can get a team to stand up, stretch for a few minutes, shake it out, walk once around the table. People just can sit down, and all of a sudden that nagging thought or the what if, there's actually, it would be so rare that there isn't time for it. And that's where you get the better result and better product. We get way too caught. And I talk about it as ruts because as successful adults, we've gotten a result that we like and we want to repeat it by driving a certain way. And it makes us faster, but it also makes us rigid. And the world is changing so quickly right now that being rigid is not helpful.
No, not at all. Not at all. So as you're talking, I'm thinking about the fact that, you know, many leaders who are listening and watching right now, they're saying, you know what, Adrienne and Susan, like, this is good, but, you know, we always tend to have this silent inner critic. Really not silent, but this inner critic, right? So can you share with us, how can art journaling silence the inner critic that's within us?
Sure. Where art journaling starts, because everything is a starting point, is when you create for 3 minutes, like I've described a couple times. I ask people to just reflect how you feel. And people feel relaxed. Good. I ask them to be your own proud parent because you've probably created something, stick figures or trees or geometric shapes that you used to create as a child. I ask people just to take a moment and appreciate you took the few minutes and admire what you did. In that small exercise, what you've done is you've silenced that inner critic and you've given yourself inner praise. You have reinforced a behavior. From there, you want to start to make that a habit. So if you can add some play in every day, 3 minutes, 5 minutes of creativity every day, and you take that moment afterwards just to look at what you did and be curious about, think, oh, wow, I made the sky green today, or I used collage. You just sort of admire it, don't criticize it. That's what starts to make you aware of how incredibly mean you are. Most of us, many people are not aware of that critic that's run faster, push harder, you can do it, because it's been with us our whole lives. So you're starting to reset it in small increments through something that's pleasurable.
I like this. I like this. Oh my gosh. I'm pausing because I'm really thinking deeply about what you're sharing with us. This is very relevant and really real. Man. So art journaling, how do we do art journaling? Do you just go buy a journal? How does that work?
So I know a little later we'll give out my website. I have a free downloadable PDF, but I want folks to start, if you're at all curious, with no barriers. It's why I like it. So I think of it as keeping a written journal, but I'm playing with colors in it. So I like people to start with inexpensive materials. If you don't have them from a child at home or somewhere, go into a kids section of an inexpensive store, buy what you like to play with when you were 5 or 6. Can be a little pack of crayons, could be some glue, some collage watercolors. Don't spend very much money. That's key, because as adults, we don't like to be wasteful. And if we get fancy things, we expect we're going to be good. So get the stuff, stickers, inexpensive, and it's your own little private book, and just start playing in it 3 to 5 minutes a day. You can do it as you're cooking a meal. You can have it to the side. There's a lot of downtime if you cook your own food. If you wait for the microwave, if you even microwave your own food, which may not be unhealthy, it's 5 minutes. Play while you're doing that. Do it for 30 days. That was sort of the challenge in my TEDx talk and just see what happens, because it's not a big commitment, but you just expand very easily and see where it takes you.
Yes. 1000%. Wow. We found this quote here that says, what would happen if you stopped editing your creativity and started expressing it freely for just 10 minutes a day? Leaders, we're listening, we're watching. We want to invite you right now to really take this conversation seriously. Usher some peace of mind back into your inner being. And 10 minutes a day, that's a small amount of time to sacrifice, but it's not even a sacrifice, a small amount of time to invest in your well-being. So again, we want to encourage you, stop editing your creativity, but start expressing it freely. 10 minutes a day. What would happen if you did that? So Susan, as we turn the corner on this conversation, this wonderful conversation here, I want to ask you this final question. For our listeners and viewers, please share with us, what are some simple ways that we as leaders, right, that we can integrate more play, more creativity into our everyday routines, especially in high pressure environments? We're talking to leaders who are in these environments where it's go, go, go. What are some simple ways that we can integrate more play?
Absolutely. So we've touched on art journaling. So I want to talk about a few other ways, because it can start with you. If you can take a couple minutes before a meeting and you have a private space to go into and you have earphones, put on some music, 1 minute of a song that's really upbeat, and dance privately, shake it off. You will go into that meeting radically differently. What happens so often is, as leaders, if you have a couple moments between meetings, between clients, you'll tend to check email, do texts, make a call. If you can take those few minutes for yourself and listen to music that you enjoy and allow your body to, even if you're just rolling your shoulders or you stretch, you will go into the next thing clearer and more present. So that's one way. Jump up and down. So when we think of play, we don't think of those movements, but moving our body, if you think of children on a playground, is a fundamental piece of play. So I really like that in a busy workplace, in between seeing clients, in between team meetings or meetings, not picking up the phone or getting on the laptop to do more emails, taking a few minutes for yourself and moving your body and listening to music.
Yes.
Hugely helpful to introduce a lightness, a creativity, even more oxygen to your brain. It makes a big difference.
Yes, 1000%. For me, I think music is very therapeutic, and my staff knows that when I'm feeling under pressure, and I tell them, hey guys, I'm closing my door and I'm putting on some music, and I just let the music play, and it tends to help me to recenter, refocus, not take the moment so deeply, but to make it lighter. And I find that I'm able to think a lot more clearer when I do that. So thank you so much for giving us some simple, relevant, practical tips on how we can do this. This has been it's been solid, and so many rich nuggets and gems that I know that I need to go back. I need to rewatch. Also, I really feel like we just barely skimmed the surface of this conversation. So Susan, we're going to have to invite you to come back again on Transformation Station at some point. But I want to ask you this, for our listeners and our viewers that want to engage with you, community, Susan talked to us about the fact that she has resources, right? So Susan, what's the best way for someone to engage with you and the resources you provide?
Sure. Simplest way is through my website, which you have there on the screen, just susan-hensley.com. There's a free PDF that you can download. I think it asks for your email. I don't email you a bunch. I don't love that. There's a contact button. I answer all the emails. That also goes through videos, other products. You can watch my TED Talk, Dare to Be Bad, where I go through some of the concepts and deeper science as to why this works. But the main thing I want people to take away is if it intrigued them, whether it was the music we talked about, the dance, the art, try and put something in for just a few minutes and keep repeating it. You will, the science behind it, the testimonials, you will start to broaden your perspective and reduce stress. There's a reason there's such a thing as like art therapy, music therapy that really does help children as well as people recovering from deep trauma. We can take that research, not being children and perhaps not experiencing deep trauma, and use that to make our lives better and richer and fuller.
I love that. And so community, again, we're being invited right now to make our lives better, richer, and fuller through creativity, through the process and the art of play. Susan, thank you so much again. It's been an honor to have you with us today.
Oh, thank you, Adrienne. I've loved it.
Thank you. All right. Well, there you have it. Listen, here's the truth. Play isn't a distraction from growth. It's the doorway to it. When we give ourselves permission to play, we unlock new levels of creativity, joy, and connection that fuel better leadership and better living. Listen, if today's conversation sparked something in you, I want you right now to go ahead and share this episode with someone who could use a reminder to lighten up and lead with more clarity. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to Transformation Station on Facebook, YouTube, or any podcast platform so you never miss out on a Monday and Wednesday leadership episode. So until next time, keep leading, keep laughing, and keep playing your way towards transformation.